All right, ladies and gents, boys and girls, and everything in between. That's right. It is time for another interview with Peretti is here. Peretti One, however you want to call it. If you want to see more of what I do, you know what to do. Go to Peretti1.com and also check out my live shows Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Twitch, twitch.tv/Peretti1. And if you just want to see where you're seeing this interview right now on YouTube at youtube.com/Peretti Music. Today we got the mighty, the notorious Jamie King in his house. Boom! How's it going, Jamie?
How's it going, man? Doing good.
Dude, this guy is the brother from another mother, my hero in music and all the shit that I do. If you know anything or heard anything that I've done in the last, 15 years, it has passed through this guy's ears and his equipment at some point for some reason. And we have been in the studio with past bands that record a couple albums. Mostly he's been mastering this stuff that I've been doing. So I know that we did like a little interview once before and we've talked. But for the people that haven't seen that stuff, because all those old interviews unfortunately were on a hard drive that's no longer there. So they didn't get to see the first one. A lot of people that are coming in now. Tell us about, I know that you started off with a basement. What got that transition? Was it married life to get to you a whole new studio?
Are you talking about like when I moved from my parents' place to this house?
Well, or just changing studio locations.
Exactly. Yeah. So from one basement to another. Yeah. I mean, I just worked out of my parents' basement just out of necessity. Honestly, like I said, I didn't have enough money to have a facility or anything, and my parents were always super cool and supportive of my music, and my band had started having practice there since I was like 13, and so I just kind of silently transitioned that into a recording business without my parents' permission. Really, I don't know if they just thought that I was just still having band practice or something and actually recording. But I was living in apartments and stuff with girlfriends at the time, and so I just continued to work out of my parents' basement because, as Swift was talking to labels and stuff like that up until about 2001. So basically, like, the whole recording thing was like, hey, I'll just do this until the band signs the record deal, and and we'll figure, I'll figure out the studio stuff later. Well, of course, right. 9/11 happened and kind of pulled the rug out from under the Swift MCA record label deal. And that's when I decided, hey, I'm just going to start focusing on recording. And then I made it a plan to just working on my parents' basement until I get things figured out and get some money situated enough to the point where I could buy my own house and, basically start my own basement studio. So here I am at 10 minutes down the road from my parents' house in another basement.
You only got 10 minutes away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this one has walls and things. Yeah, as you remember, the other basement,
yeah.
The other basement was like concrete blocks, and there's tools hanging in the background, and all that stuff's still there. It's great.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, that's what gave it its charm, though. I mean, it's like, I'm sure. I mean, I remember back in that day, everybody had these big thoughts of, ooh, I want to go to the big Hollywood studio, see all that stuff. But looking back on it, I've been in those big studios. I'm like, it just doesn't beat the basement, It had that thing, that certain thing.
At the time, this is the height of rap rock, new metal, and stuff like that, and it was kind of a trend. There was a trend, for bands to sound a little bit on the raw side, more natural, organic. It was kind of the back end of the alternative movement. So I think that environment actually played to that aesthetic or whatever. It wasn't super clean and polished. I didn't. The bands were setting up live and just playing their set, and then we'd overdub vocals and leads, as you remember. And there's some integrity in that. Back in the day, the bands had to play. They had to know the material. They had to be well rehearsed. They had to be able to play, consistently, dynamically, precisely what they were trying to play. And honestly, there's back then there was a lot of bands who could do that. I don't feel like there's a lot of bands who could do that these days. Everybody kind of relies on the studio trickery and tracking individually and things like that to have a listenable product. And so yeah, the old school basement. I mean, actually the room, had exposed insulation and rafters and things like that. And
I remember that cage on the side. That
was weird. Yeah. My mom's exercise partition. I'm not sure the thinking of that was, but yeah, because it was an old house, it had like odd angle walls in the basement, which is strange. It didn't have just square walls, and the exposed insulation rafters with a concrete floor. I mean, it was like strangely, the environment was a good sound for like drums and a loud rock band.
Oh, it was great. It's great.
Yeah, it was bright. It was bright, and it had it wasn't completely dead, but it wasn't so live that it was problematic. And it had the drum riser thing for band practice, and it kind of the drums were kind of isolated on a wooden surface and things like that. There were a lot of things that actually worked to our sonic advantage that I didn't even plan. I remember we just recently had gone back and I've been doing a lot of remixes for bands who had recorded my parents' old basement, and I was surprised at how good the tones actually were when we were like going back to remixes just with some basic EQ and proper dynamics treatments, stuff that I didn't know how to do properly or didn't have the gear to do properly back in the day. I was like, man, these rival the sounds that I'm getting now with, I got $50,000 of gear to get these sounds. And, I had probably $5,000 of gear back then. It was like, how are these sounds almost as good as what? It was just blowing my mind. I had to pay money to have.
I think it's you, honestly, man.
Well, one thing I realized is that the environment doesn't play as important of a role as a lot of course, studio owners would like you to believe.
Right.
Just as long as there's not any super negative things, if you don't have a space that's just too reverberous for certain elements like vocals or whatever, or, like I said, anybody can track, top level pro vocals, just get in your closet with some clothes, or hang up a couple quilts just to get the reflections out of the mic. And it's going to be essentially a similar environment to an isolation booth that I have here in the studio, purpose built for doing that. And, and same thing, it's like, with the convolution reverbs today, you don't have to have a huge drum room to track drums and still get a huge drum room sound. You can emulate that, very realistically. The convolution reverbs are just digital recreations of real spaces. So you can actually put your drums in a better space than what you would ever be able to afford, even with regular major label budgets. There's the studios are just off, or like, concert venues and things like that. Or exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's going to sound great in there. Yeah, like I said, just as long as you don't have any negative, any like standing waves, any like reflections getting to the mic that sound bad or causing phase issues and things of that nature. And all that stuff's easily controllable in almost any environment with some sort of gobo or makeshift gobo type thing. And you just use moving blankets or quilts from Goodwill or something like that to put around your equipment to isolate. So,
there's some great tips right there. A lot of people have asked me what I've done to, because they've seen the live shows that I came out at some point. I was always in that back bedroom, and they're like, well, you're not in a booth. How are you keeping that reverberation? I was like, honestly, this room is so small. It's got my bed, my green screen, and everything else. There's nowhere for the sound to bounce from. It's all sucked into everything. There's nothing metal or hard or reflective even in that room. So
in my room, if you notice, I might be able to move my camera around so you can see. Just have, it's my studio room. I have all my junk in here. The amps, the drums are sitting there. Everything's at easy access. But a lot of that's kind of by design. Obviously it's nice to be able to just grab things when you need it.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's like I said, it breaks up all the reverberations to have some things in the room. A lot of times just a bookshelf will act as you could spend thousands of dollars on real, purpose built diffusers, or have a bookshelf with some books on it. It's just like,
right.
It's, obviously, if you're wanting, if you have a client who's looking for that, big money experience, and the studios are nice, and they can be, they can certainly be a lot of fun to get a really nice natural sounding reverb. But it's just like, honestly, with most, especially rock and metal, the reverb is kind of, it's not the main thing in the mix. It's like it's in the background of the mix. So an emulation versus the real thing is not going to be noticeable by even even most professionals' ear, wouldn't be able to tell with the convolution reverbs today, like wouldn't be able to say, oh, that's definitely recorded in a small room or big,
well, there's like thousands and thousands of reverb settings and plugins and stuff like that. I mean,
oh yeah, you can emulate anything, and that's the thing. I work out in my parents' basement. I was able to just pull up some of these settings that I use even since I've been in this room, and it almost sounds identical. It's just unbelievable, really.
There were so many times where I'd go back to that old Stiff album, and I would try like hell to replicate that sound from when we were in your studio, and it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I mean, artificially, it's not going to happen. I'm set on that. It's just not. And that's the only option I got right now is artificial like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're getting closer and closer, I mean, that's the thing with the program stuff is like, obviously there's there's an element with natural performance that, there's I guess a fluidity to the dynamics and all that stuff. It's just hard to time consuming to emulate in the program realm. I think it's doable. It's totally doable, but you could, for one song, you'd spend weeks on the drums trying to right. emulate all the nuances of a drummer.
Then you get blind ear,
Yeah. I mean, it's just hard. To me, it's just like, it's just quicker just to have a drummer, quicker and honestly cheaper when you look at the time that you had to spend to just get a session drummer and track some drums and do the production on them, as opposed, and you're going to have more of a vibe and energy. But like I said, there's certain styles of music that the program stuff really lends itself to, I mean, obviously, White Zombie back in the day, there's lots of huge artists that had program elements, and, it really contributed to, to the vibe. The Fear Factory stuff was really produced and quantized and all that stuff. So, I mean, it just depends on what aesthetic you're looking for, saying, and there's no right or wrong way, but yeah, if you're going for real, then obviously, the best thing to do is just set up some drums and guitar amps and and just jam. That's
God, man. That's something I just miss the most, man. Out of any studio thing is just rocking out with some guys, man. Throwing down some tracks. Speaking of session drummers, I'm gonna figure out a way to bribe you into finishing my album, doing the drums for me.
I should be able to play soon, but I mean, as I may have told you, I may or may not, but I broke my arm like last summer on a hike or whatever.
Shit.
Yeah, I broke my wrist. It was the first thing I'd ever broken or whatever, but I slipped in a creek, broke my wrist, and but yeah, I should be able to play now. I was feeling pretty much okay. I haven't played drums much since, just because I've been busy.
Well, that's a bitch to heal up, man. I mean, I've sprained my wrist. I've broken lots of bones, but I've never broken my wrist. But even from a wrist, man, it gets
luckily
it's hard to heal up.
Luckily, it was like a clean fracture or whatever.
Right.
According to the X-ray and the professionals or whatever, and it cost me $1,000 for them to like look at X-ray. I'm like, yeah, it's broken, but it should heal by itself. Give me $1,000. I'm just like, I actually,
I'll tell you what. Be like, all right, well, since it's gonna heal by itself, it should be fine. $1,000 should just walk in by itself too.
There's a long, deep story. This is a whole nother podcast about the medical system. But I was gonna sue because there was some weird code and it was like $800. I'm like, what is this for? And nobody could tell me after like 5 people I talked to, and the billing department, upper management, and all this stuff. They're finally like, oh yeah, it means. The code stood for future potential treatments. I'm like, you're charging me $800 for potential future treatments. It's like going into a restaurant and be like, hey, we're going to go ahead and charge you for dessert for everybody at the table because they might want it. It's like, that just should be illegal.
That's some horse shit, man. You're damn right. That's theft, dude. I mean,
it is.
What if you walked in there and gave that doctor a bill and said, you might want to buy the next Swift album, so here's a bill for it?
Exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I talked to a lawyer, and they thought I might have a case at first, but then they researched the laws, and they were like, the problem is the definition of treatment is so broad. It's like just the doctor, like looking at that X-ray is considered treatment in the eyes of the law. They didn't even touch my arm. They gave me a splint, so the nurse put a splint on my arm or whatever, which was $100, which I could have bought at Walmart for $25. But so I was down to pay for that and the office appointment and all this stuff. But this $800 future potential treatment thing just blew my mind. Like,
so you got stuck with that anyways. There was nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, because they said, I talked to a lawyer and they were like, and the whole notion that, oh, you don't have to pay, you could just pay a minimum and they can never hold it against your credit. That's a lie. Somebody just made that up.
No, yeah, that's bullshit, dude. My
credit, you have to pay they'll destroy your credit's done if you don't pay the bills.
I mean, as you know, I've been to the hospital and doctors more times than, I mean, I'm like fragile or something. But yeah, my credit is forever that my ex-wife, but still, I mean, it's like gone. There's no hope of it. I mean, the hospitals, they will be, and I've heard that same crap. You can pay $1 a month. They want bullshit.
No,
bullshit.
It's a lot. Yeah, I don't know who came up with that, but I talked to the lawyers, and I've actually talked to people in the billing departments and things, and they're just like, no, that's. Well, like I said, that's a whole nother special here.
Right. We're not even doing that area, right? I mean, I'll tell you who created that notion that you could pay $1 is the same jackass that created the slogan "Your way, right away." I like to choke both of them. You know?
Yeah, it's not true.
And speaking of Burger King and reverb, natural reverb, I still have to argue that the Burger King bathroom is the best natural reverb you can get. Me and my boys, when I was a manager at Burger King, after we closed down, we practiced. We had a little acoustic trio, like when I was 18 or 19. We practiced in the bathroom because we sounded beautiful in there.
I've been, for the past year or more, I've been miking. I have the bathroom strangely located right next to my live room. So when I'm tracking drums, I actually mic the bathroom because it has, that reverberation on the shower stall and like
shit.
and the concrete or whatever. And I add it in my mix, and it's like a psychoacoustic trick. Especially when you add it to the convolution reverb, it sounds like you're tracking the drums in a huge, large, or a pretty decent size drum tracking room. So it's
ladies and gentlemen, this is what I talk about when I say the man is a genius. I think people right now are thinking that I've got some kind of crush on you the way I talk about you, but I mean, it's like there's not enough good thing. The man is just brilliant with this shit. It's just brilliant, Well,
I steal other brilliant people's ideas. Is basically what's going on. I'm smart enough to recognize other people who know what they're doing. But
I remember your dad one time. I met him one time, and we're tracking some vocals with that band Stiff, and the drummer I had some DWs, and your dad came downstairs and you said, "Dad, look, DWs," and I thought, what? I didn't think much of it, but Pearl has always been my thing. Honestly, I thought they sounded okay. I wasn't too impressed because just like you said with them, the resonance is a little bit thick, Yeah. And that's the problem I'm having with these, honestly.
Oh, really?
I'm just waiting for that day I could get you here and make it.
Yeah, I'm still planning to come. It's just like I said.
We both have had crazy ass schedules, but I mean, it's like no matter what I do, I cannot. And I think that I'm trying too hard to make them sound like the Pearls that I've played. Because as you know, I use both synthetic and real drums in my recordings. Mm-hmm. Most, I don't get to do a whole lot of real stuff because I got too many cramps and aches and shit like that, but I do it as much as I can. But at the same time, I'm spoiled on those Pearls. So I sit down behind these, and every time I jam, I'm like, oh, it's just not the same,
we can get it happening. Those can sound great, but yeah, the Pearls generally have thicker shells, which is they're more of a, particularly the lower level Pearl stuff. They're really nice for metal and rock. They have a nice solid punch, and they're not. I think DWs, DW is a company in their design or whatever. Primarily, they tend to go with really thin shells, and obviously the PDP are a little thicker, so they're a little more punchy than the DWs. But their main focus is a big open resonant sound. Yeah, which is great for certain styles. R&B, pop, hip hop, stuff like that. But yeah, metal, like I said, I mean, I've had tons of DWs, and they do make incredible stuff. Great quality hardware, everything. He's like, but the tones really usually don't naturally suit punchy metal and rock to me. It's like I want a little bit more weight and stab to the tone as opposed to a big boomy. A tom that resonates for 4-5 seconds. That's
useless. Exactly. So that's why I think that they'd be great for like jazz drumming. And I know when I got written to about doing the review and everything, I said, I can. I said, listen, I don't want to turn down free drums, but just let you know I'm partial to Pearl. Wherever that. And the guy that wrote, he said he even put ha ha in a smiley face. He said, I don't really care. I just want the review. I said, send them to me, shit. But. I was hoping to nail a Pearl sponsor. I really was. I guess you got to be a superstar for that. I don't know.
I don't know. The PDP are just as big these days. I mean, it's a huge company. You know, the whole GW thing is massive for drums. So, and those drums, trust me, we'll get those drums happen, and they can sound great. And they just, you know, they require maybe a little bit more muffling for the tones that you're going to want. You know,
right?
You know, we'll throw a pillow. There's a PDP actually makes a pillow that I'm really partial to. It's a
I've got one in my bass drum. They sent one with a kick. It's
like
perfect. This weird bowed thing, and it's in there.
Yeah.
The kick is doing, you know, better than the rest of it. Those damn toms, they just bong bong bong. No matter, you know, I've got insulation. I got shit in there. I mean, right now, if you saw the inside of it, it looks like, you know, somebody bought their first drum set and they're shoving shirts and crap in there. You know, I mean, I just can't.
Well, that's the sound. You know, some people, you know, there's like. Drums are difficult because there's like, you know, even though there's the internet, you know, there's more education and stuff out there than ever, but it's still, you know, to hear the drums online, you know, through some sort of microphone, it's just, you can't really, it's hard to learn to tune the different tuning methods and stuff like that when you're not in person. Like I can go over what I do with you in person. You'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's easy. You'll see how easy it is. But I could go over the same method online, and you would just be still not understand it because you're not hearing the stuff the same way you would if you're in the room with it. And I think that's part of the problem. And there's so many different tunings and so many different muffling approaches and heads configurations for different.
It's too much, man. It's too much.
Yeah. I just know after 500 drum sets or so or whatever, you know, you kind of learn what heads, what tuning methods, what muffling techniques or not yield what different sounds, you know, out of trial and error. And I got like kind of a mental database for it, and it would just be, and honestly, like I said, different and different drums or different heads specifically require different tunings, different muffling techniques.
That was part of the deal is I can't change the heads on them. That I have to use the heads that came on because they are the DWP, PHP, PDP, whatever they call them. Those are the heads before they want me to use those heads. Yeah, and I'm like, whatever.
No,
you know?
I'd imagine they're made by Remo.
Dude, honestly,
I think it can sound good, but they're not ideal for the sounds. I know the sounds you want are punchy and deep and that kind of thing. And you want a 2-ply on the toms, period.
Oh,
at least some Remo Emperors or some pinstripes or maybe some Evans G2 or Aquarian Performance suit.
So there's like about some Remos, man, especially the pinstripes. Dude.
Yeah, I would just tell them sorry. You know, it's like, you know, you could, if you want to record jazz or some regular, you know, light rock or something, those Aquarians, I mean, those single ply, you know, ambassador type heads would be fine. But
I wonder if I could get away with none of them seeing this, and then we can just say, hey, you know what, swap them out and then put it back on.
Hey, get a stamp, a PDP stamp made, and just we'll make it look just like.
I'll get my guy to make stickers. We'll just put the stickers on.
Yeah, exactly. We're probably gonna muffle a little bit anyway, so but that way they get their their advertisement. But they may actually have some that you can buy and sell.
Maybe I'm definitely going to inquire about it, man, because these things, I mean, even tuning them up to the best I could, there is just something off. I mean, no matter what I did, I got some kind of damn wrinkle, you know, in half. Yeah. Some of them would do, and that's why I'm like, dude, these are cheap. I mean, it's like I wanted to call them Fisher Price, you know, I mean, because there's like, you know. Anyways, so let's move on to some of the stuff. You guys are already hearing, you know, like I said, the genius in this, but you know, we always start off every single stream with the shows brought to you by, and it's, you know, usually people that are contributing to this and that and the other thing, but we always include Jamie King audio in it. And quite honestly, you mastered everything I'm putting out there, so it really is. And if it wasn't for all that music and stuff that launched me into this, none of that would be existing anyways. So, you know,
I'm honored to be a part of it all.
Oh yeah. And we get people asking questions. Something funny for you. There was something else that brought your name up, and it was with Motionless in White. I was on a video, and I was chatting with this young guy, and it was with a stream that he was doing, and he was jamming some Motionless in White. And I said, hey, the guy that masters all my stuff put out something. He did some kind of a recording or remix or something like that of that band. He said he stopped. He was jamming a guitar along with it. I thought he was just a guy just jamming along with other music because he was also doing it with 9 Inch Nails and other bands, right? And he stopped playing. He said, he did music with what band? I said, Motionless in White. He said, what's his name, this guy that masters your stuff? I said, Jamie King. He said, And he did something with Motionless in White. I said, yeah. He said, you know, I'm in that band, right? I said, no, I didn't know that. It was Ryan, the guitarist. And I had no idea. He didn't look the same to me. And I said, no, I had no idea. Well, after talking, he remembered. He said it was some kind of remix from a long time ago. And yeah, he remembered it then. It had something to do with Tribunal or something, he said. No, not Tribunal.
Tragic Hero, I think, maybe.
Tragic Hero. Yep. Yeah, that's what I said. So anyway, I was blushing for sure. I was like, oh shit, I'm sitting here talking to a guy. I didn't even know he was in the fucking band, you know. But anyway.
Well, they wear heavy makeup and stuff on stage.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, here's this dude just wearing a flannel and a beard and a hat on, just jamming in his chair, you know, and I'm like, I didn't know what. Why aren't you wearing all white makeup? Shit, how would I know?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, always wear that day and night. You never take it. But anyways, so I'm gonna bust some of these questions. You have to forgive me. I tend to lose my voice every other week here lately. I was like, I don't know how I'll ever get my album done, but we're gonna get into these questions now. I pulled six. I put out about a half hour to an hour before we did this. Anybody got some questions? They come cramming in there. So we're gonna start with Dustin from Geneva, New York. Honestly, I didn't read these for the most part. I just grabbed them, but I did grab Dustin from Geneva because that's my old stomping ground back in high school.
Oh, wow.
So it says, I know a lot of your work. What can you, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm going to have to splice this in at the beginning. By the way, y'all, in case you don't know about this guy, he's done lots of artists. Like the library is enormous. And also bands of the Grammy nominees, Between the Buried and Me and many others. And you've definitely got to check out more of his work. Okay, right. Place back. All right, so Dustin from Geneva, New York says, I know a lot of your work. What can you tell that is different from being in a band and recording, from being on stage and playing? When I go to the studio with my band, I am always insecure how I sound with no effects. I sing for my band.
Well, it's, really, I mean, there shouldn't be a whole lot of difference. I mean, honestly, studio should be way easier because, I mean, you can, if you mess up, you just back up and punch in, or do a separate take. And I mean, I would say as a vocalist, particularly, it is a new skill to develop because you're not performing with this loud band behind you.
You're not holding the mic and jamming. And
yeah, there's that element too. Obviously, sometimes you can get away with holding the mic to a degree, but you don't want to cup the mic as a lot of people do live. Unless you want that frequency cut tone. Because it actually, it does change the sound. But yeah, I mean, there's something. I mean, you could, a lot of, I would recommend to people, to maybe practice. Like everybody almost can afford $100 interface, to hook to their computers or, smartphones or whatever these days, and and just grab up, get a mic and just practice recording yourself at home, with a rough recording of your band or something like that, to get those chops up, to get more comfortable in the studio. There's definitely a different vibe. If you're out on the stage in front of everybody, everything's loud. That's almost a different vibe than when you're in a studio, an intimate setting. You got people staring at you through the through the window or whatever. So a lot of people are freaked out by that. But a lot of times, like I'll just I'll make everybody. I've got a hangout chill room here in my basement, and I'll just tell the rest of the guys, like, hey, I can usually sense if the vocalist is kind of nervous acting or kind of is obviously feeling the pressure or just isn't comfortable yet, and I'll just have everybody else go into the other room until the vocalist is comfortable. It usually doesn't take too long, for most bands to come in.
See, that's different, man. That's a different kind of engineer right there. But I can vouch for that because when I first recorded with Jamie King, I never met the guy. I knew him from the band Swift, and Swift was an enormous band around here. I mean, they dominated the Carolinas, So there was all kinds of intimidation. Now, as far as feeling insecure, the only insecurity I felt was here's a guy that's playing in a band that's selling out places, and I'm playing in somebody's garage. I don't want to sound like ass, but. Yeah. But Jamie did. He did exactly like he says he does now. He paced it out, let the time go. He even gave me an Orange Crush out of his fridge, and then after we stopped for half a dozen times, I walked down the road and got a 6-pack of beer, and you know, and then that broke me, and I was good to go after that. But but that's the way Jamie is. He lets you get comfortable and everything first, which is a lot of things engineers don't. So I would like to add to what you said. If you're feeling insecure in your studio, do what you can to get comfortable, you know, and if that means you've got to kick back with your engineer a little bit, you know, and get to know him a little bit, befriend the guy or something, you know. Because if you're not comfortable, it's not going to work.
Yeah, a good engineer, good producer. I guess this is more in the realm of production, but a good producer is going to, you know, he's going to kind of read the room, kind of read the individual, and try to get him comfortable and secure feelings. So, you know, just the idea, you know, what I want to do is try to get the guy to give me the best take he can, or the most proper take for the project, you know. And if he's nervous, and you know, sometimes, you know, that nervous energy, some people can harness it and actually utilize it, but a lot of times, you know, if he's nervous to the point where you can hear it in the voice, or he's like holding back, he's not letting go and stuff, then you know, that's a negative. So, you know, I feel like, you know, it's part of my job to like just be chill. I always try to keep a super chill, laid back, just, hey, that's one of the positive things about working out of a basement. It's like, you don't have that large format studio. Oh, it's $90 an hour, we've got to hurry up. It's like, you don't have that, oh, there's somebody in another room looking at me through the glass, I don't know what they're saying. You know, everybody's in the same room here. It's super laid back, almost like a band practice type of environment.
Nice.
You know, where everybody can communicate clearly. The only difference here is obviously you're going to be using headphones, and you're going to be in an isolation booth or whatever to track your vocals. And, you know, but usually, you know, I always like let the vocalists, you know, get warmed up. I mean, I'm like, hey man, I got to get my levels anyway. So why don't you just kind of jam on this, and, you know, let me know if you need anything louder or quieter, and then, you know, get comfortable with your levels and stuff. And usually that process, you know, if they run through a song once or twice, most of the time they're like, oh, I see, this is going to be easy. I can hear myself well.
They're all broken in.
Yeah, I can see if he's feeling uncomfortable with people in the room, I can send them out of the room, you know, do everything, you know. But I have had instances where there's people who just aren't comfortable at all ever. Like they're just super intimidated by, you know, the recording thing, or even live. You know, some people have stage fright. Right. And I guess it's a similar type of thing, but I guess it's more like studio fright, where it's like they know it's being recorded and they can't get it out of their head. And, you know, there has been some instances where, like, you know, you just have to get what you can get, you know, and you know, I'll work with it on my end or whatever. But, you know, it's unfortunate, but some people have that thing. But in my mind, it's like, if you have that problem, you probably shouldn't be a front man of a band. You know?
Right.
Seriously. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like,
facts.
You need to get over that. If you're going to be the front man of a band, you need to be cocky. I mean, most of the successful artists and bands and musicians, I mean, they have a certain level of cockiness, you know, that that shouldn't even be an issue. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need to own it and command it, you know, and or at least try to put yourself in that headspace when you step to the mic, you know.
Yeah.
And just be
confident.
If
none of that works, then you know, get really drunk. I mean,
there's always, I mean, whatever you got to do, you know. But I have had people like, hey, let me drink this Jack Daniels. It really helps me. And then they're like, oh, I can't do any more vocals after.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, you can't see. Beer is one thing because you kind of have a slow, you know, a slow buzz that you're getting into. Liquor, forget about it, man. You're gonna not only is that gonna fuck up your throat, but you're gonna be jacked up like that, and the next thing you know, you're gonna think you're Fred Astaire or something, and you're just gonna be like, I found my friend.
I have seen it work with somebody. I have seen liquor work when somebody had a cold before. Like, it really did clear them up just enough to get a good, finish up the takes that we needed to finish up.
I think it's the medicine of everything. That's just
whatever works. Yeah.
Right. But, you know, going to extend on that, though, the one thing that Jamie does is he doesn't, you know, kind of put it out there that you should be prepared. So, you know, if insecurity is something that you're not prepared for, I would suggest working on that first. Because I mean, I even had one song, I think it was like in the third time we were in there, and the whole band, we just didn't have it down. And he said, you know, you guys might want to rehearse on this a little bit. But he said it really nice, you know. But I mean, it's you don't want to put out shit. Yeah, you don't want to put out a shit fucking thing. It looked bad on the band, looked bad on the studio, you know. I mean, and honestly, looking back, I'm glad we didn't record it.
This happens. It still happens to this day, all over and over. People come in and they're stoked on their new song, and they don't really quite have it down yet, or quite have it figured out. And they almost always like, you know, I've just recently got to the point. Okay, I'm not going to allow this anymore, you know, because they're wasting their time and money and my time as well. Because 9 times out of 10, they come back and they want to retrack it. And it's like, dude, we just wasted like, you know, 5 total hours in the tracking. And then, you know how the production editing takes forever too. It's like we did all this production editing on the drums, and now you've changed the song structure. So now we had to retrack, reproduce, you know, I mean, it can be up to, you know, most time, you know, even for a 3 or 4 minute long song, you're looking at a full day's worth of work.
Oh yeah,
production. Yeah, so you're just throwing away.
Week, you know.
Yeah, so that's $300 gone. That's like, you know, everybody's time. You know, it's like, dude, it's like it would be. It's almost always, especially if the artist is local. It's almost always better if they just, hey, let's take it home. Let's get it to where we're comfortable with the song, all the aspects, and then we'll come back and track it next time. And so I'm yeah, but that still happens all the time, and more than ever, really. I mean, because so many people are writing records on Guitar Pro tablature programs. They're not even actually playing anything. So they'll come in the studio and then they try to play it, and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, I can't play this," or it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just like they're having to learn all these crazy riffs that they had written, and realize it's outside of the realm of possibility for even like John Petrucci or somebody. You know?
Well, dude, it sounded really great in my head, and it was awesome on a computer. I figured I'd play it. Where do I put my finger? I don't even know.
I have to lecture every band that comes in here. I have to just be like, dude, if you're planning to learn something in the studio, then we need to book time for it, because, you know, if you know the song, you can come in and do a song in a day, a 3 or 4 minute long song, you know, but if you don't know the song, you know, you could spend a half day, all day just tracking rhythm guitars. You know, it's just like, you know, that's not, to me, it's like, you know, recording is a recording of a performance. You know, it's not a programming. Like if you're reading stuff off a computer and you track it 3 or 4 notes at a time, it's just like, okay, now this isn't a recording anymore. This is like, you know, this is like me, like copy and pasting parts. You know, I don't know. It's bizarre, but yeah.
Well, I totally feel you. And you got to think your demo or your album, that's your business card. You don't want to hand somebody a business card. If you're an attorney, you don't want to hand somebody a business card saying, I try to be a lawyer, but 9 out of 10 times I go to jail anyway. You want to have something that looks good, right? Sound good, you know? I mean, I told dude that cracked me the fuck up, man. Come in, well, I don't know how to play this, you know?
I mean,
you know, it's a lot like web design. That's why I got out of it. People, you know, we'd go through this, we'd spend weeks building their website, and then they'd be like, you know, actually, I want it to look more like Google. It's like, why the fuck did you tell me at the beginning with, you know, why didn't you get that laid out?
That's a huge issue here, too, yeah. Bands are like, hey, we want to sound like this when we start the project, and then a new record comes out that they like. By the time we finish the project,
sound like that.
Yeah, it's like, dude, that's a complete opposite sound that we went for from the beginning, and that's sometimes not possible, or, you know, it's going to take.
I think you've had to deal with me with that with my Vox. Like, I'll hear one thing and it'll sound a certain way. I don't ever try to sound like somebody else, but there's certain elements that they have, like, you know, the certain smoothness or something like that. And I'm like, all right, I want to capture that. Then I'll hear something different. I'm like, no, wait, this is way better. And I'm like, all right, wait, can we do this? But you're always real gracious about it. You're like, yeah, we'll run it through this way and try this.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that if you have time, you know, and money for it. You know, it's just, you know, a lot of bands, of course, the bands I record, most of them don't, you know, like, do we have X amount of money for this much time? And then it's like, you know, it's
I bet it's real nice when you get bands like Between the Buried and Me that just got their shit and they just
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they always write the whole record and record it once before they come in, so it's just like, you know, so it's fine to. Yeah, there's always like some experimentation and some you know, some tweaking, you know, in the studio, and that's to be expected. But it's none of this like, you know, none of this new trend of like people learning stuff off Guitar Pro and or, you know, or bands thinking it's supposed to be
Guitar
Hero. You're like writing lyrics in the booth. It's like, you know, going back to that, you know, the guy's question, talking about being confident in the studio, that's part of it. Be prepared, like have your stuff down and know that you're going to go in and crush it. And then you'll be confident when you step to the mic. Then it's just a matter of getting comfortable with that particular environment and that particular situation with the mic and headphones. And, there's nothing to be concerned about if you know that your parts and you're going to do just all you got to do is go in and capture it on the mic.
I think that's a good way to sum that up. If you're prepared for it, then you're going to be confident in what you do, and then you're going to go in there and knock it out.
Yep.
So Bernie from Houston, Texas says, I have decided I no longer want to be in a band anymore, and I want to start learning studio work. I love Between the Buried and Me, by the way, and also Swift, since here we go. He says, since Peretti played it on the stream. It is obvious you know your gear, so what is the best DAW, DAW, however anybody wants to say it, and rig I should get to learn and begin being a studio engineer?
Well, of course, you know what I'm going to say about this. I'm still a big proponent of Pro Tools. It's the industry standard, always has been, I think always will be. Obviously, it's probably the most expensive route at this point.
It's not cheap.
I mean, they have, I think, what is it, like $20 per month if you want to do that thing? It's not like
that, man. That's like when Adobe tries that shit. I'm like, no, I just rather have the whole,
I personally prefer, but as a beginner, like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to do this or whatever. I don't recommend people just going out and buying. Hey, I'm going to buy a whole studio. It's been $10,000-$20,000 buying all the gear I need, and then realize, oh, I don't enjoy this, or I'm just not. Right. I'm not good at this, because I mean, there is an art about this stuff, and it's you do. There's a lot of technical stuff, so you have to have kind of a proclivity for electronics and computers, and obviously you have to be musical. You have to have a good sense of pitch and rhythm, and understand rhythm theory and melodic theory and things like that to really be a good producer or engineer and stuff like that. So I've seen a lot of people just jump into it and just go head first and buy all this gear and all this stuff, and not really, and end up realizing that hey, this is not really something I'm good at or something I really enjoy. Because it's a bunch of work. I mean, it's a bunch of clickety clack on your Mac, as they say.
right.
It's Dude, over half the time is just editing and cleaning up audio and things like that. And people don't realize that. They think it's all fun and games, and like,
they think it's all jamming. Yeah, no, you spend grueling hours.
It's just like your stuff. They see, oh, art looks awesome. I'm like, it's not just fun art. It's a bunch of coding and stuff. You have to learn the technical. It takes years. I mean, years upon years for most people. But so what I recommend, like I said, I do recommend Pro Tools just because it's the standard, and it's like, basically there are other inexpensive options, but like, say if you start, I guess one of the most inexpensive and memed DAWs out there is called Reaper or whatever. A lot of people love that program because it's inexpensive, but it has limitations. You're gonna get to a point, especially particularly if you want to do music with analog components, like if you want to record analog real drums or real guitars, things like that or whatever, and eventually you're going to want to do things like drum quantizing or pocket the temp, like perfecting the timing on the drums. There's no really good tools in Reaper. You just can't do it in Reaper and have it sound 100%. They don't have. Pro Tools has either they have a patent or nobody's figured it out, but they have a thing called a feature called Beat Detective, which uses a copy and paste algorithm, so it keeps the you can edit the drums and keep the quality 100%. It doesn't do this algorithm doesn't use stretch and compress like all the other DAWs do. So all the other DAWs, they degrade the audio quality unless the drummer's really super close. It's a noticeable degradation to me. If you want to use real drums. So that's why Pro Tools is the standard. And maybe some of the other DAWs have something I don't know about yet that they've done in recent years, but to my knowledge, there's no other DAW that has these things. So basically, there's a few limitations like that with the other DAWs, and it's particularly if you want to get into, metal and rock, with organic drums, guitars, things like that. Now, if you're going into hip hop, or if you're going into electronica or something like that, and you're only programming, now almost all the DAWs should be fine for that stuff. And actually, like Ableton or Cubase type stuff, or even Reaper
FL Studio.
or FL Studio, or your what's the Apple one? I've got it on my computer.
GarageBand or something like that.
Well, GarageBand's fine, and but it's what's the other big one? Anyway, like I said, I mean the Logic's what I'm thinking of.
Logic.
They're actually kind of better for the MIDI stuff because it's more user friendly. It's more streamlined. The Pro Tools, you can do everything, and it's like for a lot of people when they get into the MIDI component of Pro Tools, it's just really I guess confusing and laborious to them because there's too many options. And these other platforms, they're more simple and they have less features. So you can actually learn quicker and easier. So I think if you're going into the electronica stuff, so maybe not do Pro Tools, maybe do maybe do like a Logic or something like that, or whatever's cheap, whatever's easy for you to do. Because my thing is like once you start in a DAW, you're not going to ever want to leave it because it takes years to learn it.
You're not lying. It's a learning curve once you.
Yeah. And if you're like, hey, okay, if you start in Reaper, like, okay, now I need to learn how to do drums. Like, oh, well, now I got to switch to Pro Tools. Well, guess what? You're not starting from scratch, but it's going to kick you back maybe a year in habits in terms of key code, combinations and, just processes and things like that. So, I mean, my thing is, like I said, there again, like if you want to do this as a career, almost every major studio has Pro Tools. So if you're going to go into another studio to track a project and they're going to have Pro Tools, you got to know it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's certain production stuff that only can be done 100% on Pro Tools. You got to know it. It's like and it's some of the big major labels, they require the files to be provided in Pro Tools format at the end of the thing. So even if you track it in something else, you have to import it all into a Pro Tools session. Right. There's a lot of engineer guys I know who they'll mix in like in Sonar or something like that, but they're actually tracking and editing in Pro Tools. I'm like, why don't you just do everything in Pro Tools? There's no rules, so whatever works for you. But that's my advice as far as a DAW. And
well, that's good advice because you got a point. I mean, look, I tried to get into Pro Tools a couple times, and I chalked it up as like old dog new tricks at this point. It gave me such a splitting headache to try to learn it. I was like, I can't do it. I've got to go back to where it was, which I know that there's a bad curve to that because, I'm limited, obviously. And you're
doing, like I said, you do mainly program-based stuff. So I think that's, it works great for that, and all these things, you can do all the vocal stuff, I think,
Yeah, well, some, okay. So, honestly, I'll put a lot of my vocals on FL just to get that in FL Studio just to get that those I can't think of it right now. Those extra plugins to make it compressed and then maximized and all that stuff. Because like some other DAWs I've used that were more basic, it didn't matter what you did. Like some of the earlier stuff I've sent you, it didn't matter what you did. It was going to sound like a tin can regardless. Yeah. Just exporting it was just crap. With FL Studio, at least vocals it comes out pretty damn pure in my ears. I don't know, but I don't have the trained ears you've got.
Oh, people are like, oh, they all sound the same, and that's not true at all. I mean, I know. No. I noticed that the new Pro Tools, I mean, just of course, I've got the top of the top or whatever. So, but I've noticed even a marked difference when I upgraded. I didn't think it could get any better. I'm like, well, it sounds clean, but there's something about it. It's even better now. There's more headroom or whatever. They always, Pro Tools seems to stay always a little bit ahead of everybody else, in terms of sonics and
but I need to take like a class on that someday and just buckle down and say, okay, that's it. I'm gonna.
It's a pain. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, because I mean, Pro Tools has been messing up lately. Abbott or whatever, they've been, some of the updates have had some ridiculous glitches that shouldn't exist. With they invented this stuff. It's like it's just everybody's, they're releasing stuff, and then, of course, Apple's like, okay, we're going to change to the Apple chip now, and they're like, it's just so everybody just like, oh, we're not fixing the glitch until we figure out they're going to change this, and it's just a big, so that stuff drives me insane. But like I said,
technology drives me insane with that shit too, and that's what I do. I mean, it's like I no sooner get one thing in, and then somebody changes something in the platform that runs the whole thing. It's like,
now
but you know what? So pretty much for Bernie, you're saying, Pro Tools, but maybe start off with like a smaller version of it.
Yeah,
Just make
absolutely.
sure that's
Yeah,
what
they
you
have
wanna
some
do.
inexpensive like introductory type stuff. Get you a, I'm a real, there's little Focusrite Scarlets or something. They're like $100. Get it, and you can do basic stuff with that. The only thing like where you get into money is when you start wanting to record acoustic drums because you're going to need loads of mics, loads of inputs and preamps.
Yeah,
that's
I need
the
new mics.
can of worms. But it's like, but yeah, everything else you can do, real guitars, real cello, real vocals, with the little Scarlett. You don't need anything crazy, and
Yeah,
they're
you
clean.
plug those direct anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, just and mess around and see what you come up with, and you could do your drums program. If you want to do acoustic drums, just go to. There's tons of studios everywhere in the country. So it's like, just go to a local studio who's already got all the mics and stuff. You want to track some real drums and just go in with
That's
a
what I've been
drummer.
doing.
Yeah,
that's what I've been doing. Like like I'll have my synthetic stuff, but then when I did go to play, I always went to the same places locally, and I just honestly we trade things up. I never really paid anything, and then we trade things up, whatever. But I'd play them, and that's how I got spoiled on the Pearls, honestly, because that's what I always had there.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do, and then he'd give me the stems, and I'd do what I need to do with them. That's a good advice, So start off with something pro, but maybe a little smaller. Make sure it's something you want to do because, like Jamie said, you're going to get into a whole bigger can of worms later on. Like right now, I need new studio mics. Mine got destroyed in a flood, so that's why I got on my wish list. I need, dude. I'm stuck. I'm frozen right now. It's like until I get these new, but I got them on my wish list, and every show I'm begging for. I'm like, somebody buy these things for me, I'm thrown back a little bit because I remember back in the day in the basement, you had that big board, and it's like every time something changed out, you had to go in the back and change out like 50 cables and then put them back, so
you have a patch bay now. So.
Right. And I remember thinking, damn, I'm surprised that the jacks aren't all fucked up, from doing it over and over again. But shit. So, get ready for the growing pains is my point.
I just, one of the main things, I mean, even if you're great at it, even if you're like, I love doing this, there's so much competition now, there's just everybody, and I've been a part of it, the Creative Live and the URM.com. I've got classes on all that stuff. And it's like, there's so much education out there. So now everybody is trying to be their own engineer, and really there's not a lot of work for the studios, honestly, I question how long I'm going to be able to stay in business. It's like eventually
you'll be long dead, and people are still going. I mean, you're like people's favorite hairstylist, dude. Like people. There's been different studios. Well, let me give your stuff a spin, see what I can do. I'm like, Jamie's the guy that I go to.
Yeah. Hopefully that'll carry me through, to a point where I can afford to transition to something else. But I mean, the reality of it is, like I said, I mean, it's all getting so much easier. The more technology. I mean, eventually somebody's going to come up with an auto mix, and you put in your favorite band.
No, don't say that shit, man.
And it'll just mix it. I know it's going to happen. It's just like with guitar tone. With guitar tone, you got the Kempers and you got the Axe effects and all these things, and it's like these tones that we used to have to fight for. You tried to learn how to mic the guitar and how our favorite guitarists were getting their tones. We're like, how are they doing this? And now all you got to do is buy the units and plug it in. Like, there's the tone. They've captured the tone in this computer box. All you got to do is buy it, plug it in. Like, now you don't have to learn how to engineer any guitar tones. Like, all that time, these decades I spent trying to learn to engineer the guitar tones from scratch.
Now it's a
and you just plug in. Yeah, I mean, and everything will be like that eventually. It's just like the drums. It's like, to get good professional sounds, now you can just buy a program. They've already done the work for you. They already sampled the drums with the SSL console and the tape and all the stuff that makes it sound awesome. They've already got all the samples. So all you have to do is just have the plug-in and just $99 or whatever.
I was really shocked. There's a musician that does a lot of covers, and I think I might get in trouble if I say it on here. I can tell you afterwards, but he's doing amazingly well on YouTube doing these cover songs. In fact, he makes so much money off of it. He bought himself a whole new house and built a new recording studio and everything off this. But I was really shocked to find out that because he plays the drums in his videos, right? And I was shocked to find out that he very rarely ever plays the drums. He just does that in the video.
Yeah.
And because it sounds legit to me. I mean, I can usually tell because I had been mixing synthetic and real so long that I can usually hear it. I couldn't tell. I had no idea.
There's some plugins out there. I mean, some programs, Joey Sturgis and the Nolly from Get Good Drums and all that. I mean, there's some of these programs. I mean, they've gotten it down. They got the desirable drum sounds on tap. I mean, it's not like with the drums. Tune Track. Drums from Hell was a big step forward because they were real sounding, real drums, but the tones weren't the tones we wanted. The process they had natural, kind of more raw type sounds. But then now these other people have who've given us the sounds that we've all wanted from our favorite records and stuff. And it's literally, if you learn how to use those plugins, it can sound 100% legit. Granted, it's obviously it's always better to me with the real thing. If you got a good player who's really well rehearsed and properly tracked in the studio, there's going to be more emotion, energy, and there's going to be something more. So the human element's going to be in there. That's going to help the music connect.
See, Bernie, don't get a blow up doll. Get a real woman is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, to each his own. Some people might like.
It's your own thing. So those are some good points. And Bernie, I'm glad to see that you watch the shows, obviously, because you said that you found Swift through the stream. So, and I do play you guys every once in a while. And we had one person when I played it once that requested a second time. So I mean, there was that. I mean, so yeah, definitely, Bernie, keep coming and checking it out. And I hope that advice is good. I'm telling you, whatever this guy tells you is solid. Sally Sue, how are you? Is what she put as her name, from Charlotte, North Carolina. It says 2 questions. When is Swift doing another reunion? And if you say never, I'm going to scream and frighten my husband. Next question: do you have Swift merch I can still get my hands on?
We don't know, honestly. We planned to do a show in 2020. We were going to try to do some type of festival type thing, but obviously, COVID had other plans, and they had to shut down and all that. So, but yeah, since that, that was the last time we discussed about doing any shows and things of that nature. So everybody's busy. The guys Gary's down in Florida. Billy's still up in New York,
really?
And.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought Gary was in New York and Billy was in Florida.
No, Gary moved. Gary's actually from Florida, so he just moved back to Florida. And Taylor just took on a job. He's teaching for UNCG now. Last I heard,
a teacher.
Yeah, he's
what the hell is he teaching?
He's a college professor in chemistry. He's got his doctorate.
Shit.
Yeah,
he's got his doctorate.
Oh yeah. He's done TED Talks and all kinds of stuff, dude.
Have you told him that's not what musicians do? We don't do, we don't go get our doctorates. No, hey, that's great news. I'm proud. But you know what? I mean, let's go ahead and let the people know the truth. I mean, we're not here to lie. The truth is, Sally Sue, how are you? Swift can't do a reunion show because they've been asking me to be their new lead singer, and I had to say no. And I just. I mean, they and they agreed. I'm too good looking for the band, and so of course I'm lying, obviously, but that's all I need is for somebody to take.
No, it actually worked out. Like I said earlier, I broke my wrist, so we wouldn't have been able to do these shows anyway.
Right
in the fall of 2020. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see what's on the horizon. We've been talking about trying to get back together and see what we can come up with. I don't know. We'll do any more new Swift music. I feel like the Swift fans probably want material that is more normal, more similar to our old material. And, we're all personally just, into different style. We're not listening to the same stuff and influenced by the same style of music at this point. This has been 20 years.
You never know what that can make you. All of us in Blister were in a completely different genres. We kind of meshed it together. Now I know you guys already have your element, so there's your thing. I know that if as a fan going to a Swift show, which it just still makes me sick, I had to miss that last one. I was gonna go film it and everything, but I think I would be interested in hearing, of course, the old stuff because that's what was, for nostalgic reasons. But also, I'd be real curious to see what kind of sounds would come out as a new thing,
Yeah, we discussed that. I mean, like I said, I can't remember if I've even discussed this with the guys, but I've fantasized about possibly doing, a lot of bands are doing these playing the whole albums all the way through. I thought about doing we have our first two albums, which is like kind of the new
Pretty
metal,
fucking sweet, dude.
yeah, like Thoughts Are Thought, Waging War era, which is a certain sound. It's a new metal type of. That was during the new metal era, and then we kind of went to more of our thrash roots on on the Communication Manual and the Absolute and Controllable, and maybe do a show of just the first two albums and play those, and maybe another show of the next two albums. I thought would be neat for the fans of those particular areas. The new record, like I said, it was like it was just an amalgamation of all the different styles of music that we and leftover material that we'd had from back in the day. And I like I said, I think that the majority of fans, they either like the Waging War, Thoughts of Thought era, or we got the split that like the Communication Manual, Absolute and Controllable era. And then the new album's kind of like doesn't appeal to either one of those.
I loved it, man. I thought it was great. That whole medieval kind of battle thing going on,
Yeah, we had some fun stuff. Yeah, like I said, that was just kind of like, like I said, those are a lot of old ideas and things like that. But there was a lot more serious, political, subject matter in the vocals and things like that. Gary's just in a different place mentally. He didn't have the demons that he had when he was a kid. So things like that.
We have new demons.
Yeah, exactly.
Arthritis.
Yeah. Now they're old person demons, politics
and shit.
Exactly.
But also, that was back in the day when you could talk about politics and even stand your ground, and it didn't bring the snowflake craziness.
Yeah.
People were either with you or they'd be like, I don't agree with it, but it's still a kick-ass song. Today, you'd have pitches and torches, pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, it's crazy these days.
It's nuts. But so the other part of the question is, she wants to know if she can still get her hands on some merch.
The only thing we have some CDs left. So the new CD, the Worst of All Things Possible. We do have a few CDs. I know Tribunal Records still has some on their site, I believe. And so if you're interested in getting any of the physical CDs, I know some of those are still available. But I think we're technically out of all T-shirts.
Shit! Because I was wanting one.
We can get you more. I mean, Crow, we can hook it up or whatever. But
right, dude, I'm starting this whole new collection. I'm trying to collect all these band shirts again. I feel like I'm 18 or 19 all over again. I find myself getting these band shirts like crazy. I love them, man.
I have stacks and stacks. Of course, I keep I gain weight, I lose weight, I gain weight. It's like it's like I can't wear half the shirts that I have.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Hopefully, I'll lose weight and I'll be able to get back into it. But
dude, I have my fat guy drawer, my skinny guy drawer, my medium guy drawer. It depends on what my old ass body decides it just wants to be like one day. And then I do that.
Yeah, I get busy and stressed, and I start eating.
Yep, sitting at the computer, and then those Twinkies are awful.
That's another thing about being an audio engineer. Whoever's interested in that, you got to understand it is not a healthy thing to be doing.
It's not. There's no cardio in that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, unless you get a treadmill while you're editing or something, there's just. I know. I think there's a way to do it. I just wasn't responsible. I had a bunch of financial stuff that forced me to work more than I really should have. But, I was doing like 70, 80 hours a week for 10 years or whatever.
You were the busiest guy in music I know. I mean, it's like, yo.
But don't do that. I'm telling people you think you're going to get ahead and it never happens. And so now I'm trying to balance, and things have gotten better. Now that I've got, Tommy from BT BAM is my manager now, and he's really helping
really
me stay. Yeah. He's been my manager for quite some time. But he's helping keep things balanced, because I'm a yes man. All my clients are my friends now. When they hit me up, they're like, hey, I want to record. And I end up giving them all my weekends. And, next thing you know, I'm like, I haven't had a day off in 6 months. Kind of stuff happens. And so with him, he doesn't know anybody. So he does the management job. He's like, these are the dates I have available, and take it or leave it. So I'm finally getting my weekends off. And
well, good, man. You deserve them anyways.
I had no choice. I mean, it's literally I got to the point where okay, I'm on the precipice of being bedridden. So if I don't, yeah, I mean, health has been anxiety through the roof, and ended up in the hospital with panic attacks. And it's just not good to work 78 hours a week. And that's just,
well, man, I hate to hear that, especially a guy like you. I mean, I know I went through my times with that, and I've even told you about it. And sometimes I'd have a lot to drink to deal with it, and I'd tell you about it. You know, I'd send you an email. I'd be like, yeah, man, this fucking sucks, dude. And you'd be like, what's wrong now? And I'd be like, oh, my life is over. You know, like,
we all go through it. You know, I think everybody does, you know, but, you know, like hindsight's always 20/20, as they say. And I'm trying to, you know, I know a lot of young, hungry, you know, audio engineers and people who are like, hey, this is what I want to do for a living. And, you know, just like myself, you know, I thought I got to just work really hard to figure this out and get my name out there and do this and that or whatever. But, you know, it's not worth sacrificing personal relationships and your health or any of that stuff. Just keep it balanced, you know, just do your 40, 50 hours a week at most, I think, you know, and it's, you know, luckily there's no labels in now, you know, hardly, at least I don't deal with a whole lot of labels, you know, like years ago, it was, you know, over half of my work was with record labels, and they all had deadlines, and oftentimes there were crazy deadlines.
Oh, fuck,
that were exacerbated by bands coming in unprepared. And then I would have to do, you know, 20, 22-hour days just to meet deadlines. And it was killing me. Like, it was just, I would do a project.
That's no good on your mental health, and it's no good on a band either. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I could rant like a mofo on that shit, man. Because like right now, the album I'm working on is 8 months past due, and that's the last album I have on my deal, my crappy freaking deal. It's never going to give me anything worth substantial, right? But I'm 8 months, and every time they give me crap, I'm like, that is not helping. That is not helping. I'm not going to do it any better by you telling me, let's hear something. I'll send you the same 2 tracks I got done 6 months ago, and there's something. That's it. You know, I mean, I
get it from the label standpoint. A lot of times, how the industry structured is kind of messed up. I mean, you have to set up your distribution like months and months in advance, and all this other stuff. And I get it, you know. But same time, you know, it's like, you know, I got roped into doing, because BT Bam being my most popular band. You know, most of the art that comes to me is most of the artists that come to me are progressive styles, which is the most difficult to record and produce and edit, you know, and most time consuming of any style of music out there, period. So it's like, but then the labels, they don't see a distinction between a Hatebreed style band versus between the Buried and Me. And it's like, dude, this, I could do a Hatebreed record in 2 weeks, you know, record, you know, edit, mix, master to the top, you know, and BT Bam takes 6 weeks, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
well, there's a lot more to what they do.
The labels don't back in the day, they didn't recognize there's a difference. And that was what was really causing me problems. And you know, me being the yes person.
Right. You know, well, you are definitely a gracious guy. I mean, you've never, ever turned me down for any help, you know, and sometimes I felt bad asking too many times. Like, all right, so I'm going to ask another tweak on this after 20 times. And, you know, I'm like biting my nails like he's going to kick me in the damn fucking face. But, you know, you're right. And a lot of people don't. And it makes me wonder how a lot of people get into those jobs not understanding that shit. How did you get to be the head of deciding all this stuff about bands and for bands when you don't understand dick about what's going on back in the backseat? You know?
I don't know. They really don't. I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, the owners, like, they just look at the bottom line. And obviously, you know, by forcing people to meet deadlines and things like that, it helps them meet the bottom line. And you just never hear about that. But a lot of it, you know, I just need to, you know, I needed to learn to say no to people. And I did learn to just be like, you know, hey, it's, you know, because at the end of the day, music is, this is for fun. This is a hobby. This isn't supposed
to be.
It's not. Nobody's going to die if the record like doesn't baseball. come out this week. You know, it can come out 2 weeks from now. Like, just like I'm not losing sleep. You know, and when I was younger, when I was younger, I would just sacrifice my own health and happiness and my family's relationships and everything. Like I said, it was, you know. I mean,
well, you get tunnel vision on it too, you know. I mean,
it's OCD for me. It's a disorder. Yeah. It was a disorder more.
I think every musician has OCD. I'm hell bent on that. I really think we all have that shit, man. I just
would not stop until I was done. You know, I just would not stop, and it was like, you know, no matter, my body was telling me, dude, stop. You know, my family, my mom was like, you're going to burn out. I'm like, telling you, I'm like, I'll be fine. You know, that's what my email is, Machine JK, and my, you know. Part of it's, you know, Gary set my email up and he's like, part of it was like, I would just work I would go 16, 18 hours, you know, in the in the basement, you know, working on stuff. And like, dude, you're like a machine. Like, you just never stop, you know. It's just like, And
Well,
I prided on myself on that when I was younger, but then it just, as I got older into my 30s, it started catching up with me. And next thing I know, I'm like, it's very unhealthy and mentally and physically. And so I'm trying to turn it around somewhat now. It's just a matter of being able to. It's a double-edged sword. I got to have time to turn it around, but at the same time, I got to work enough to pay the bills and
that's really something that you all have to think about. Anybody thinking about getting into this or doing any kind of computer work too. Anything where you're sitting most of the time, you've got to you really the thing is, I feel like I'm saying something to maybe somebody that's younger that I would have been like, yeah, okay, whatever. I feel like Superman right now. But the thing is it's true. I mean, my live show, I literally fell out, hit the ground, passed out, and on camera, that was humiliating. And I was building this place, and I was doing shows and doing reaction videos and recording my album and then building this place and then doing shows. And I wasn't sleeping. I was working myself to death. And I'm like, I'm 47 years old. What am I doing? And I got up
to a certain point. Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. When you're young, like I said, your perspective is different because you feel differently and you get at a certain age and then like you still put yourself, I still put those same pressures and things on yourself. And, it took me a while to realize like, man, I can't perform like I used to. Yeah. I can't do records as fast as I used to do. And I just have to do what I can because I don't want the quality to suffer. I want to always do the best job I can do. So it's like, I'm definitely not sacrificing that.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but really, the only thing I can say is think about it now for you younger people that are getting into this. I mean, even people that say, you sit in a chair, you don't do anything but rock and roll with your shows. And honestly, the best exercise I do is I'm always headbanging and dancing in this chair, but that's the best cardio I get is my shows that I do. I mean, y'all really got to think about that. If you're thinking about getting into stuff like that, like he said, that any kind of computer work where you're sitting, you got to think about that.
I force myself to go walk, every day or every other day at least, ride bikes, whatever, it's just, I'm forcing myself to do it now. And it's good for my kid and stuff like that too, but it's really a lot better for my mental state, but it just, it takes time out of my day, which sucks. I know I've got some clients that are probably waiting on their record right now thinking like, get off the computer, get off this interview and get back on my record. But you gotta have, you got to pace it or whatever. Otherwise,
you got
the product's going to be down, and then I'll be out of the game if I don't play it safe at this point.
Well, you're the most responsible guy I know with music and stuff, so I'm sure you're going to get that. It sounds like you're already on your way there. But that being said, before we piss off your clients, let's get to the next. We got 3 more questions here. Some of these people are coming up with some funny names, dude. And it's funny on my show that they do that shit too. But Tom the Bomb-a-dee Bomb Bomb. Boom, shika boom, boom, shika boom. From the crap shoot in LA, California. That's exactly how it was written out. California. What band was the most fun to record? And what is the best tip you can give for me? You can give me for miking my drums to record because the dude recording now fucking sucks. I need to tell him a pro tip. I love it, dude. Fire your engineer is the first thing I'd say if he sucks.
If he's not good, it's probably just get another guy. But as far as fun bands, I really don't know. I don't know who has a lot of bands I have is enjoyable. Yeah, I will say it was definitely more fun for me back in the day. Recording new metal and rap rock and all that stuff because the bands just came in, we set up, we mic'd, and you played, and we did some overdubs, and we did a mix, and it was over. It was just like there was no, it's not all this editing. There was no, there's not a lot, a million layers and stuff, and it was just the more enjoyable aspects of recording and production. Nowadays, like I said, it's just like. I really do enjoy editing, like quantizing drums and tuning vocals and things like that. There's something that feeds my OCD about that stuff, but it's not fun. It's not like, I can't wait to spend 8 hours doing this, right. Tuning these 4 songs. It's like, so I think all the projects now have stuff that's not fun, and they do have stuff that is fun. And it's, it's always rewarding and fun when everything comes together. Obviously, I think BT Bam, of course, always bring them up or whatever. They're, always fun to record because they're my brothers. It's like we've been in, from day one or whatever, and it's like some of the best musicians, super cool dudes. We keep coming together. It's like a family reunion every time we get together to do a record. So it's
nice.
It's like that family feeling, like getting caught up in just
hanging with the boys again.
Yeah,
well, and you got all that musical genius in there. I mean, it's like well,
it's not even that. To me, it's like even if they weren't good, I mean, it's like they're so cool,
just fun guys,
and their stuff is even like I didn't like the music, but I do. I love they're some of my favorite music, honestly. But at the same time, it's like I said, it's just they're cool dudes. They're real down to earth guys, and they're it's like they're just fun to be around. They're funny as shit. They're completely reasonable about everything, and it's like to me that makes it an enjoyable situation. And I've had other bands who are amazing musicians, but they're not reasonable people about things, and they make it miserable. They're too serious about stuff. Or then you got the flip side of bands who are just not good or not serious enough, and they're kind of like wasting my time and their time. And it was just like, so I like that. There's some bands I've recorded who are just in the middle. It's like, hey, let's get together, let's enjoy making a record, let's do something that means something artistically, and try to capture some performances. They come in prepared, and it's all enjoyable. But it's I would say half of my projects are like that. The other half are not. It's just like sometimes they bunch up. It's like 3 months of miserable projects in a row, and then 3 months of good projects. There's no rhyme or reason over the years.
Well, I can definitely tell why you would probably get that vibe, like those guys from Between the Bury and Me call up and you're like, yes, thank God, please come over. I'm just heading to nothing but 3 months of shit.
Luckily, recently, the past couple of years, it seems like almost everybody's been cool. There hasn't hardly been any super negative people. And that's my main thing. I don't even care if I like the music. I'm like, dude, I don't think what you're doing is good at all, but you're super cool. And, so I enjoy this. I'm going to try to help do the best job I can do for what you're going for, But, I would rather that than have a band like, I love the music, but you guys suck as people.
Right.
Because I'm spending time with you, and I don't want to spend a month of my life with somebody who's just miserable and makes me feel anxiety and stress.
It's like a bad marriage, I mean,
yeah. And you're stuck. You have a contract.
Yeah, you're right. You're stuck with them. It is like a marriage.
It is. Yeah. For
literally. Except without you may have some blow up dolls. I don't know. I mean, but I mean, I always looked at like musicians a lot like, and I might get some people upset at me for saying this, but I'm not going to say, I mean, women are the only ones I have as a reference because, I'm straight, but I would say it's the same thing for guys, everything else. Personality can ruin everything. I've been on some dates with women I thought were absolutely beautiful, but by the end of the date, I thought they were horribly ugly because it's just their personality shit. Same thing you go with musicians. They can ruin their whole fucking thing, Yep. I mean, there's nothing worse than a fucking prima donna garage band, I mean, they're like, oh, we got 6 people that come to our garage and watch us. We're the shit, I mean, I've even had some that come up to me every once in a while. And they have no idea I've done anything. And they're like, like I talked on the last show I did about this singer he was trying to tell me about, he looked like he was putting so much work into his screams, and it was just fry screaming. Right. And I was with a buddy and we were watching their band thing, and I was just watching, and I said, dude, why you look like you're going through so much hell? I'm thinking he already knew who I was or whatever, locally here, But he's like, oh, man, well, that's because I'm a singer, dude. I've been doing it for 6 months. We know these kind of things. You got to really push yourself. And I'm like,
dude, I've been doing this for your whole life.
Yeah, since you were a glimmer in your daddy's nutsack, But I mean, I played along with it. It's like, oh, okay. So you got experience. Like, yeah, man. I mean, like when you're a singer, these kinds of things, And then he's like, watch, I'll show you. And he grabbed the mic. He's like, Rah! And his face was like, I thought he was going to start busting out in pimples and shit, right? Like his eyes were going to pop out. And he's like, man, see what I mean? You got to push, he's telling me this shit. Like, I was like, oh man, your stuff, dude, and I grabbed the mic. I said like this, and I made funny. And he was so mad, but I made a mockery of the guy. I couldn't help it. But I grabbed the mic and I was like, Rah! I said, so you really don't have to put yourself through that, man. You let the amp take care of it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I tend to do that. I go off on my own tangents about shit. Sorry.
Oh, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. But yeah, as far as the drum miking thing, that's, I mean, like I said, there's just specific mics that I like or whatever and use, but it's pretty standard stuff, whatever. Shure Beta 91.
What is your preferred? I mean, I'm partial to Shure across the board for everything.
Yeah.
What's your preferred drum mic?
Yeah, I still, like I said, Shure Beta 91, you know, for most of the punchy metal rock stuff, if you want a good attack, whatever, inside the kick. I still use I'm using a Yamaha sub kick on the outside now, or a Shure Beta 52, depending on what type of vibe. Depending, like the sub kick just kind of gives it a rounder, fatter type of low end or whatever. And this Beta 92 carries the same lower frequencies, but they have a little tighter attack. So it depends on the kick drum and desired sound. But usually just two mics on the kick. Snare, I still do I'm actually using a Beta 57 on snare because it has the hypercardioid for maximum like hi-hat rejection.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 57 still works great on snare. I mean, it's a standard.
Man, 57 is a classic though, man. I mean,
yeah.
You know,
so Beta 57, ideally 57 works awesome too. On the bottom snare, I'm still using a Beta 57. It's got that 8K boost as opposed to the 5K boost or whatever. But a 57 works great on the bottom snare too. Again, all these are industry standard things. I do use Sennheiser 906s on the toms, or 904s.
Really?
Sorry. Yeah, they're the Sennheiser 421 is like kind of like a long time industry standard for toms.
Okay.
And but they're designed for broadcast mics, so they have like a low roll off and they're huge, so they're hard to position. So a guy that I know who works at Sennheiser basically told me, he's like, hey man, the 904s have the same diaphragm as the 421, so they literally sound identical. I didn't believe it. I bought them and I A/B'd them. I'm like, these sound identical.
No shit.
Yeah, and they're the clip-on deal or whatever. It's not the 604. The 604 doesn't sound. There's a little more boxy. They can work too, but the 904 are the ones that sound like they're the exact same sound as the 421, and they're more positionable. They're smaller. They clip on the drum. And
that's a big thing. You don't want a bunch of clanky shit while you're trying to play.
Yeah, especially most of the metal drummers these days, they set up for ergonomics. There's no space between cymbals, so you got,
No. See that's about. I like roomy. I don't care if it takes up too much space.
That's actually better sounding. Yeah, the drum, I always set myself because I'm big and I spread. I spread out anyway. I play right and left-handed.
You always did kind of play wide, anyways, though. You did it like a sweeping motion on your cymbals, which is kind of different.
But it sounds better. It's hard as a producer, as a mixer, to deal with if you've got loud cymbals in the toms and snare mics. It's like you can't gate them out and stuff. And it's so if you have your cymbals far away, like they did back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, they put them way far away so that the analog gates would work. It wasn't just for looks. It was literally so the cymbals wouldn't open the gates on the toms.
Yeah. So, well, once that bleeds in, you can't take it out.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's tough. I mean, there's tricks nowadays. I mean, you can kind of work with ergonomic cymbal setups, but it's difficult. But those mics really help with that. I still use a Shure SM81 on the hi hat and ride. I'm using the Neumann. I guess what is it? K184s. It's the industry standard, like pencil condensers by Neumann or whatever, kind of not cheap, but they sound amazing on the cymbals or whatever. I still use a couple of those for overheads. And I've honestly got some pretty inexpensive Rode pencil condensers, like a couple $100 a piece that I use. Yeah.
I had one of those ones. I thought it was crap, man. I don't know, maybe I just was using it wrong, which I don't know.
The good thing about those things, they're inexpensive and they're just super razor flat. They have no height. At all.
That's true.
You wouldn't listen to them and be like, oh, this sounds great on this. I mean, it's like, it doesn't flatter anything. But like I said, I use them specifically for spot miking. They're really directional and like stuff like splashes and my China cymbal and all my little accent stuff that I might want to boost in the mix. Like I'll mic them with these Rhodes mics or whatever. And they work great because, like I said, they're just. I don't run them in the mix at all times. It's only if somebody hits a splash and I want to be able to bring it up, then if the overhead's not enough, then I'll bring in this Rode mic or whatever. But
I'm gonna have to send you that set that I was looking at of drum mics, and maybe you can tell me what I should get instead for a couple of them, because I mean I've always taken everything you said as gold. Like to record my vocals, back in the first Basement, you had the Shure SM58 Beta.
Yeah,
I still use that.
That's great
for all my mics.
Apparently, from what I understand, Bono from U2 uses that mic. He could use any mic in the world. He still uses the Beta 58 in the studio. You know, he can afford
it. Just always came out the best for me, you know. And I wondered, well, is that just because that's what you've always been? But no, I've used plenty of other mics in that Beta 58 for recording.
Well, it's just like, you know, James Hetfield, people who do kind of harsh vocals, like the dynamic mic kind of rounds out and smooths out that harshness, makes it a little more, you know, makes your diction a little more, you know, smooth naturally. And that's why a lot of people love the Shure SM7 in the Beta in the 58. The Shure SM7 has the same element as the regular 58 and the regular 57, to my knowledge. It just has some sort of EQ circuit. So it's literally the same mic.
The live stuff I still use, it's a wireless, but it's still the 58A Beta for live too, because
the Beta is great because it's got it's got more gain. It's hotter. It'll pick, you know, you can walk around for studio purposes, especially. You can be more off of it, like a regular 58. Regular 58 is not quite as hot. You have to be right on it, and it's got, you know, a little bit different EQ. So, but honestly, I mean, in reality with drums, like I said, I mean, honestly, you give me all 57s, I can mic up a drum kit and I can EQ it and make it work. You know what I'm saying? It would sound good and professional. You know, really people give too much, you know, I've learned that the mics aren't as important as I used to think they were. Like I used to think I have to use a 57 on the guitar and blah, blah, blah. And I got into the EQ matching thing and I've realized like the mic is super subtle, like differences or whatever. Like you could mic with a, you know, a $5,000 condenser or, you know, a 57 and EQ match it. And in the mix, it would almost be indistinguishably different. You know,
really?
if you just EQ matched it. Yeah, I mean, like I've got that DUI Magic Spectrum and it matches up to 512 EQ points. And it's like, so basically like, you know, it's just like the voicing of the mic affects it naturally. But if you match that up, that's how all these modelers work. These amp modelers and these mic modelers and stuff, all they're doing is matching up the EQ. It's like they're taking one mic and then they've got a saved EQ profile of the other mic, and they just you know,
they just
compensate for the difference. Yeah, and then literally it sounds like the other mic, you know, and it's crazy how there's like 1,000 different mics out there.
That really is wild, man, because I've always been solid on this mic is making this happen, but I guess maybe not.
Well, it's like I said, there's a difference. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know,
well, like if you got a Radio Shack, you know, $5 microphone, obviously, you know,
there's a certain level. It's like, okay, now this is just, you know, like an MXL. I mean, most of that's just going to be garbage, and you're going to be able to hear that. But it's like, you know, there's, you know, certain, like I said, I've got a, you know, the $200 Rode mic or whatever, and if I EQ match with my Neumann U87, which is a $3,500 mic, it's like, the difference, the U87 has a transformer in it, so it's like it adds a little bit of heat and distortion to the tone, so it makes it hotter and warmer. But if you EQ match it in the mix, you can barely hear the difference, especially if you run the Rode through like one of my transformer preamps and like and boost the preamp a bit to get that transformer saturation on it. It's like, I mean, it's such a subtle difference. It's just crazy how it just, you know, that much money difference, and it's really.
So sorry, you remember when I just had a flashback? Remember the Tube Screamer?
Oh yeah,
the vocals.
I use a version of that in my mixes all the time. Still,
no shit, y'all. Yeah. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we literally ran Vox through this guitar pedal. It's this little green guitar pedal, and it was called the Tube Screamer. And just for this one effect, and honestly, I totally ganked the sound from Swift because Gary used it a lot, and I was like, I want that for this part or this part, and he pulled out this guitar pedal, and you know, obviously that's not the best practice now because it's, you know, once it's in there, you can't take that out. Well, you want to make sure.
Yeah, now I add it on the backside if I want it, kind of deal. And but yeah, I mean still a you know, for that sound. I mean, of course, I don't know if anybody else used the Tube Screamer. I'm sure somebody used the Tube Screamer, but yeah, other people were using drives on vocals back then. You know, like Chino for Deftone. You know, like Terry Date. You know, Hostile from Pantera had a distortion on there, and that was our kind of thing. Well, my thing was that, you know, because Gary, he went from a talk whisper thing to a scream, so the dynamic was so broad, so we almost didn't have a way to get that clear in the mix without adding overdrive and really brick walling it and literally just going ahead and distorting it. And it was like, because Gary didn't need distortion for his scream. His scream was ridiculous anyway. But
my God, it was crazy.
But yeah, the distortion thing kind of smoothed the screams and the whisper stuff out to one even level, and it was like, you know, it was a cool sound. I mean, a lot of people during that era were doing stuff similar. You know, obviously Slipknot,
I was too live. I had the
Drive
Digitech RP12. I did a guitar pedal I use live. Now I run the TC Helicon voice live thing because it's made for vocals. You know, so you don't have that feedback quite as bad.
Yeah, it's tough with feedback. Yeah.
So to answer your question, Tom, you know, there's a lot of different choices with drum mics, but I think as far as like
those are the ones I use. Yeah, and I use whatever works for room mics. You use a 57. I use a Rode. I've got some Shure KS27s. Honestly, you're just looking for some you know, room reflections for the room mic. So, but that's all I use, and it's honestly, like I said, you can almost use anything.
What about his pro tip for his engineer that fucking sucks?
If he sucks, then yeah, just find somebody else. But you know, like I said, I mean, maybe he's actually good. He's just not good at getting the sounds that you're looking for. So he might be using exactly the best mics for the sounds that he goes for. And but you know, he's, you know, like I said, it's not that he sucks. Maybe but find somebody who's doing, you know, if you want a McDonald's cheeseburger, go to McDonald's. Don't go to Taco Bell and ask for McDonald's cheeseburger.
Thank you.
They can't, you know, that they can't do that.
Right. You know, you get to the studio that you're most compatible with is what I would think, you know. I mean, because it's kind of like, you know, I'm going to use the hairstylist thing again because my mom was a hairstylist most of her life, and you know, she was constantly getting people, like somebody would quit being a hairstylist or retire or whatever, and they'd come to her, and all of a sudden they were just not compatible, and she's like, well, you know, I'm a different kind of hairstylist. Same thing, you know, it's different engineers and stuff like that. Or producers. So we got Jackie. It says somewhere in the center of the USA. That's where she's at. Somewhere in the center of the USA. Should my band always use the same equipment and instruments in the recording studio that we use on stage? Our studio master, you call him.
That's what I want to be called. I'm not just I'm a studio master.
We're not worthy. Our studio, oh my God, I'm going to laugh about that all night. Our studio master said,
I guess technically you could look at it. He's a master of the studio art.
Oh, you know, I just have this vision of this band all being dressed like I Dream of Jeannie, you know, master. All right, see if I can get this out. Our studio, the guy said we need better gear than what we use on stage.
Possibly. I mean, depending on what you're using on stage. I mean, if you're getting some Hello Kitty guitar and it depends on the sound you want, really. I mean, like I said, you know, I've
Hello Kitty.
Yes.
He's gonna kill me, yo. Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, there's been times. I mean, I've been you know, I've learned to be open-minded as far as equipment because I've had clients, you know, his band calls He Is Legend I recorded way back in the day. The guy came in, you know, he's like a master guitarist, you know, as far as he's got just the tone in his hands. And he had this crate amp. You know, crates are kind of notorious for just being a budget practice amp, you know. And he had this they were band on they were on Tribunal when I worked with them, and then they were on I think Tooth and Nail or Solid State Records.
I'm making you go off track, man. Anyway,
no, yeah, but they're pretty known band. I mean, they're definitely awesome band. But anyway, I remember he came in the studio and he's like, "I've got this." The one guitar player had a 5150, which is standard for great metal tone, you know. Right. And he had this crate with the sonic maximizer on it. He was like. He's like, I want to use this. He's like, you know, I think it sounds really good. I worked with it, got it dialed in. I was like, I don't know, man. You know, my instinct was like, let's use the better, more expensive gear because we had access to it. But I was like, well, let's just go ahead and hook it up and see what it sounds like. And it's the amp that's on that record. I mean, it sounded great. He had it dialed in. and it blew my mind. It was like, it's not, it's good because it doesn't sound like everything else, and it's like,
right.
And it really worked for that record, I think, at that time. And so I've kind of learned, to be open-minded about equipment. Some people come in and, if there's some technical problem, if you got a guitar and it will not play in tune or something like that, unless you want it out of tune, and it's like, obviously you need to get a
like
better
Korn
guitar.
and go there.
Yeah, I mean, some people want that janky kind of, if you're doing an alternative type thing or a classic rock thing and you want it to sound a little bit out of tune or crappy or whatever, then, there's no rules with equipment, but, I'm against these studios in like forcing clients to, hey, use my gear. You're going to use this guitar amp. You're going to use, and it's like, there's lots of producers and studios out there like that do this, and all their records sound the same. And it's like, dude, it's not the producer's art. It's the band's art. So let them make the choice on the equipment to use and stuff. And it's like, I always try to make what the band uses work first. Let's track it.
Yeah,
like, luckily,
that's their sound,
exactly. Yeah, if they have a sound. Now, if they come in and are like, we don't really have anything I'm digging, I always ask the band, like, hey, is there a record to kind of give me an idea, like what kind of guitar sound you want, what kind of drum sound you want? And then I will give them my knowledge as to what I feel is the best way to get that sound,
Right.
A lot of people, they have gone to Guitar Center and talked to the guy. I'm like, hey, here's the sound I want. What do I need? And the Guitar Center kid will sell them the absolute opposite, wrong gear.
Right.
As happens with drum heads all the time. Like, hey, I want this kind of drum sound, and they will like sell them to complete opposite drum head that produces an opposite sound from what they actually want.
Yeah,
and it's like, so
there you go, kids. Talk to your studio producer, not the Guitar Center guy.
Yeah, a lot of times the producer is going to have more of an instinct, but as to what actually produces the sounds that you're going for. But like I said, there are a lot of producers who are like, they want you to have whatever sound they think is best. It doesn't matter what I think is best, in my opinion. Like I'll put my opinion out there, but I want to give the client the product that they are paying for, that they're hiring me to get. If they want to sound a certain way, then it's my job, in my opinion, to try to make it. It's like you go get your car painted, like, hey, I want this car painted this shade of red. And they're like, no, you want the car green. It's like, no,
exactly.
I want it friggin' red.
Yeah, see, this is the vibe I'm getting off this right now. I mean, honestly, I want your answer because it's your interview. But the way the bad vibe I got off this is, I'm thinking this poor Jackie's going to the studio and this engineer or producer, well, this would be production, is sitting there trying to force fuck her and what to sound like, you know. And I just think, honestly, if you're going to a studio like that, you need to come to North Carolina and hire Jamie or somebody like him, because I mean, really, you shouldn't have that kind of experience in my book.
This is why I got into doing production, because, my old bands in high school and right out of high school, we had gone from studio to studio and we wanted a specific sound or something in the ballpark of specific sound. And no one would give us the sound we wanted. They were like, no, you don't want to sound like that. Or like, oh yeah, we can make you sound like that, and then it totally doesn't sound like that. So either they didn't have the knowledge, or they did have the knowledge and just not the will. And like I said, the last studio I went to before I decided just to do it myself was a $90 an hour studio in Charlotte. Great facility, and we worked with the third shift engineer guy who just didn't really know what he was doing as far as getting the sounds that we wanted. And then we hired this guy to come in and engineer the drums. And, at that time, Pearl Jam was all the rage. So that alternative sound was like, the big roomy drums. And I wanted to sound like Metallica or Pantera. I wanted to punch you in your face drum.
Well, that's
like dry. I didn't want a lot of room sound. I wanted like a huge reverb on the snare from a reverb unit. But he was like mic'd up all the drum room and tried to give me this big, alternative.
No, that's for Duran Duran and fucking Boy George and shit.
It's $90 an hour. And like the deal was, I told him, I was like, dude, this is the sound I want. Do you want me to get some CDs and let you hear what I'm going for? He's like, no, that's not necessary. He's like, oh, you don't want that sound. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I am paying you. And finally I was like, okay, we can't afford any more than $90 an hour. We paid $13,000 and we didn't end up releasing a record because we didn't like the way it sounded. It was like, I was like, we can't afford to pay more than this. So it's like my only option is to, like, I know what I want to sound like. My only option is just to buy the gear and do it myself. because there were no other studios that we could find that would give us the sounds we wanted. You know, no local studios producing records that sounded like we wanted to sound. And, you know,
Well,
so I carry,
you, man. You know,
well, I carry that forward to this day. I'm one of the few, I think, that really like it cares about what the client wants to sound like. A lot of big clients, well, luckily, a lot of the clients come here and they want to sound similar to other bands that I've recorded. So it's easy. I already know how to do that. They're in the right place, you know, but I have had instances where artists come in and like, they want to sound a certain way that I've never done before. Dude, I've never done a record that sounds like what you want it to sound like, but I'll do my best to try to figure out how to make your record sound this way, even though it's not my personal preference, even though I have no idea really, or don't have a really good idea of how to get those sounds. You know, I'm really going to try to get it to sound like that way. And a lot of times, you know, this is where people are local and they just want to stay local. They don't want to travel and things, but sometimes it's just better. Like I said, if you can't find somebody who wants to make your record sound the way you want it to sound, then you just need to go somewhere else, you know?
That's what I was going to say. Cause it's like this. I mean, if you're really Jackie, if you're in a situation to where you're going in there with this idea that you're going to come up with this product that you're going to be happy with, if somebody's trying to force you into sounding different, you're not going to be happy with your product when you get done with it. You're going to waste your time and money, and you're going to have a recording studio experience should be an experience that you walk away from and remember for the rest of your life as something awesome. You know, I mean, you shouldn't go in there and have a bad like going into a restaurant, eating something and get food poisoning. You don't want that shit, you know. Or imagine if you went to, you know, a restaurant and you said you wanted lasagna. I said, no, I think you want pizza instead. You know, it would fuck you up, dude. Don't, Jackie, you know, I don't know who your studio is. Go somewhere else.
Well, I will say, like I said, having said that, I mean, I think it's producers, you know, they're responsible for, like, you know, a lot of times I'll have an idea or an opinion and I will share that, but I always make it clear, like, hey, this is my opinion. You guys are the boss, but I think it would sound better if we did this or we use this out. Hey, do you want to try this out? This is not really sounding the way I think you want to sound. It's a lot of times, like, to me, it's like, you know, and some like, you know, if somebody's like, hey, I want to sound like we sound live. I'm okay, we're gonna use your equipment and your settings even, and
right.
that, you know what I'm saying, that's what it's going to sound like. So that's important, you know, if that's what they say. Most of the time bands they have their favorite few artists or few records are like, hey, I want my guitars to sound like this, I want my drums to sound like this. And oftentimes it's they have purchased the wrong equipment to get those sounds. They're like, hey, right. I want us, you know, if you say, I want to sound like I mean, I don't know, like
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, if you want to sound like Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, exactly. I want my guitar to sound like Jimi Hendrix. I'm like, of course, you know, of course you need a Marshall with the Strat right. and with the thing. If you come in with a Gibson and you come in with a Fender and no distortion, you know, it's like that's the wrong amp. You know, it's like you know, there's instances where my responsibility is to educate them. Like, dude, that's not, you know, look. But I always do it. Like, I'll let them hear what they have, and then let them hear what I think they should use, and let them make the decision. Still, you know. But if a guy is just like, you're going to use this because this sounds better, a lot of times that's the engineer. They're being lazy. They know they can get a good sound with the gear they have. They got presets already. You know, when bands come in and use my drums, they're already tuned up, so it's easier. But if they want to use their kit, I'm like, bring your kit in. We will tune your kit up, and we'll use your kit. That way, it'll have the sound. It'll have your drum set on there, and you know. But a lot of engineers are like, no, you're going to use the house drums because they sound better. It's like, not necessarily.
Yeah, they just want to do that. Like you said, it's easier. They already got to figure it out, so they're just going to go ahead and just want to. They don't want to put the effort into doing a different thing.
They've got their EQ presets already set for that kit, and it's just like, you know, plug and play for them. And I think that's a lot of the motivation behind that.
Right. But, yeah, and Jackie, like you said, unless you're using like a Hello Kitty thing, you know, obviously you don't want to.
Yeah, obviously there's sometimes
you might want to listen to them, you know.
Like, hey, this guitar will not play in tune, then it's obviously
right.
All right.
Now, if you switch, if anybody out there is trying to sound like Jimi Hendrix and you switch to the alternate setup that he just mentioned, you're gonna get the blues. You know, it's not gonna be Hendrix.
Yeah, there's just some things, that just will not produce sounds that you. Right. You know, and like I said, people come in with, you know, they'll have a Mesa Boogie and they'll want a tone. They really want it to sound like a 5150, but they're like, I hate Peavies. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. You like this tone that you bought a Mesa Boogie. That's not. They both sound great, but this does not sound like that. It can't.
I want a cherry Coke, but I hate Coke. Well,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, but Jackie, at the same time, he's got a good point. I mean, Liz, the producer's job, like Jamie's is to give you the best suggestion. I guess it would really depend on what your exact situation is. Because, of course, anything that this guy says, I'm going to take as gold. But if it's somebody that's just being lazy like that, it's just, you know what? I mean, go somewhere else. That's what I would do. I don't know. I mean, if it's just being lazy and
you're the boss. If you're paying somebody, you are the boss, in my opinion. I don't care, obviously if there's a label involved, then they are the boss, unfortunately.
Right.
They're the ones paying, but whoever's paying is the boss. And, so, I would just be like, if you really feel the gear that you have is going to give the sound that you want, and just let him, like, hey, let's try my gear. The good thing with recording equipment, like I said, with drums, oftentimes you can use the drums. If something doesn't work out, you can sample blend or sample replace. So it's not the end of the world, particularly with the kick, snare, and toms. So you can always change the sounds there to a degree. With guitars, you always record the DI. The engineer always should record DI signals from the guitar or bass, as well as any amp or amp emulated signals. That way, if you need to change any guitar tones later, you can do that. So there's some flexibility. Like I said, you're not just stuck if you use your gear. The only thing you would be stuck with is whatever guitars you would have to retrack if your pickups didn't sound the way you needed them to sound, or they wouldn't play in tune, things of that nature. And your cymbals, you can't sound replace cymbals. So whatever cymbals you use, or what it's going to be on there.
Just pick up the phone and book Jamie King.
I'm down with that.
Problem solved. All right, here we go. The last one, Emily from Canada. I saw you with Swift when I was in the States. I also saw Peretti a long time ago at the show. You and the band showed up after your show. I also have always loved Swift and Peretti. I think she's kissing both our asses right here. But it was Blister then. I know what she's talking about. She's talking about that show we've talked about before, where you guys showed up after years. We were next door. That was Stiff. That wasn't Blister yet. But anyways, his new stuff is amazing, and he credits you for mastering all his work. Told you. And thank you. I am amazing. I'm just saying. So my question is, what is the biggest difference from recording back then to now? And do you mostly do mastering? Any new Swift material coming soon? So there's a two-part question in there. I think we covered most of that, but anything else you want to put in there from then to now? And actually, I think you already answered both of that, but is there anything else you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, basically just broadly, it's just, back then was more live recording with prepared material, and now it's just more piece by piece, more progressive, more elaborate material. Everybody's pushing the envelope as to what they can play, and more layers and things like that, as far as what I'm seeing anyway. But yeah, as far as Swift, like I said, we don't know. I mean, we've talked about getting together. We don't know if we'll do more Swift material or another Swift show or any of that other stuff. We just, we're just trying to find time to get together, Gary and I, and, probably Mike, possibly Billy, maybe Taylor or whatever, just depending on, stylistically where we want to go with things. And, but yeah, I mean, it's really just super up in the air right now. So.
Well, there you go. I mean, I know reunions can be tough. Me and the guys at Blister have been talking for the last 9 years about doing a reunion. It just never pans out. We're all on different pages and stuff like that. But
it costs so much money, honestly.
Oh, it does. It's crazy expensive, man. I mean, people don't realize you don't just hey, let's just load up the wagon and go to Beverly. It's not like that,
It's just the cost and time for me. It's like,
losing work.
I make $300 give or take a day of work or whatever, and it's like, so you take out days to work on new material and then record it and then practice the shows. I mean, you add it up, it's like, man, I've got $50,000 worth of days to do this one show and this one record, or what,
you ain't gonna make that $50,000.
And that's just me. The other guys will probably lose even more money. I know Gary, he does IT work, and then Taylor's. So it's like for us to take time off work and do that, and then the travel involved. We got people, we're spread out across the East Coast at this point to a degree, and so there's thousands of dollars in travel, and it's like, even though we're lucky to have a good turnouts here in Winston and make a decent amount of money on that is still a drop in the bucket compared to what we have to spend to actually do this thing, and it's us. If we were all, I think if we are all living locally like we were when we were kids, then obviously we'd be getting together. We'd definitely have another record. We'd definitely be doing shows because the sacrifice would be, significantly less or whatever. But now with family too, it's just like the time is just,
we all got old, man.
Well, there's no money to, part of the problem is with it, there's no money to be made on the selling music anymore. It's like, when we were doing it, I remember, like we could sell CDs and that would pay for gas and some food and
your merch
like
tables and stuff. That was where it was at. It sure as hell wasn't from just being on stage.
That's still that way. Now luckily, it's still heavy T-shirt sales and stuff. We were lucky to have a good amount of T-shirts sales and things of that nature, but it's still nothing compared to like, the way things used to be with actual album sales and whatnot. And it's just hard to validate, financially. We were only popular here in Winston and maybe a 5-hour driving radius, somewhat popular. So it was like, if we had the opportunity to have a national or international promotions strategy implemented, I think things might be different. I think there might be enough interest in money to make it all make sense. But just for us, it's just like we just have to do it for fun and at personal cost. It's pretty high.
Well, you never know, man. If we keep pumping you on the shows that I do,
we need any millionaires out there. Just call me up and you can be our record label and.
He might even any super fans that want to donate. He might even autograph your blow up doll.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm playing the lottery, so if I ever hit, Swift the record will definitely be coming out.
Right. Well, I can tell you as a fan, a lifetime fan. I could call it a lifetime at this point. It's been so many years since the start of all this. I would certainly like to see something, but I also understand. On the other end of the scope, how that can be. With Blister, on the other hand, it's not going to happen because one of them's in prison. We'd have to actually do a jailbreak, and so that's a little harder to do.
That might make it even cooler, though.
That would make it cooler. We would probably sell the arena out, but
if you could do like a remote thing or something,
right?
Or just do Metallica played a prison show. Just do the show there. half the fans might be there anyway.
Half the people that show, I would probably say like most of the people that used to come to our shows are probably already hanging out with him. He's a rock star right there in that cell right now. He's like, that's right, I was in Blister. I don't know. I'm talking a lot of shit about a friend of mine, but but anyway, so there's all the questions from everybody. Speaking of mics and stuff, I use the 7B, actually. I think I told you I'm always partial to sure. But absolutely. I know a lot of singers use that in studios. Honestly, I tried to record some box on that. I can't get into it. I gotta get a new arm, though. That thing keeps falling out.
Yeah, like I said, it'll work similar to
bassy.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. What you'd have to do if you want the same sound that you're getting from the SM for the Beta 58 is you just got to cut the lows. That's all there is to it. It's going to sound the same.
I think that since this is already mounted, I'm just going to keep using it. But this is great for stuff like that because you get that radio voice. You can be all like, and this is Purdy with 106.5 at the end. You know what I mean? You could get all bassy and shit like that.
It's the proximity effect. And that's what that's designed for, And certain people's voices are thin and they need that bass. I have an SM7 in there, but oftentimes I still use the Beta 58 on people's voices,
Right.
I mean, normally I start with the Neumann U87 mainly just because it's an expensive mic and it's usually set works. It has a high lift and a low cut already and has the extra heat from the transformer. So it's got a little more things going on for it. But if that doesn't work for the vocalist sound, the natural sound of the voice or the desired sound, then I'll go to the SM7. And sometimes if that's still not working, and I'll try to Beta 58 and I've actually used the Rode a few times because it's just razor flat.
That baffles me, man. But I might have just had a bad experience with the one I had.
It depends. Everybody's voice is different, and the desired sound. It just depends on what some people's voice. It's kind of muffled, so they need the high lift. Some people's voice is really high end and edgy, and they need the softening of the dynamic. So it just
This is where the 7B would come in.
but in reality, all this can be done in EQ and post. I mean, that's
right.
You can like I said, there's two differences, basically, or three different microphones. Really, you got the ribbon, you got a dynamic, you got a condenser, and it's like they all has slightly different character and different transit responses and things. But other than that, it's just EQ voicing.
And the Hello Kitty Campbell soup can sound.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a whole thing in and of itself.
That's
could be the coolest sound of all.
It could be. You know what? Now I'm tempted to try it just for a track, just to see like an effect or something.
The longer I do this, the crazier the better to me. Like I love crazy, weird. Like somebody's like, "Hey, let me plug in this 6x9 car speaker." I'm like, "Let's do it."
Oh my God! I remember the car test. We went out. What was it? The van?
Yeah.
We put. Yeah. Was it a CD?
I still go to the truck. I always check my mixes and masters in my truck.
Man, y'all, we would get done with a recording, go out to his van, put that. It was your parents' van too, I think, right? We put that.
Yeah, technically. Yeah.
I think it was a CD. I think we were past tapes at that point. But anyway, we put that in, and we would do the car test to see how it sounded in cars, because that's where people would hear your stuff most of the time. They'd be riding, stuff. Absolutely. Anyway, nostalgia, my God, we could go on for. This is officially the longest interview I've ever done. We are at just about 2 hours right now, and it's totally fine because I've enjoyed every minute of it. Look, y'all be on the lookout for Jamie, because we are going to figure out a way to get him here, and we're going to work on these drums again. I'm going to do the drum review. We have all that to look forward. Thank you for everybody for sending in your questions, for everybody that sent in other questions and we didn't get to it. I'm sorry, but it's a damn good thing we didn't, because we'd be here till 4 a.m. Talking about everything. But me and Jamie go way back, so we're going to be a little long-winded about stuff. And I certainly enjoyed this. So thank you, Jamie, for doing this. I appreciate it. And you know what? Y'all keep those Swift things coming. Jamie, we got to talk to Crow. Give me a Swift t-shirt, because I want one. I got to have one. In fact, I'm really sad. My Jamie King t-shirt has got a wear hole. I've worn it so much, it's got a wear hole in the shoulder, and it really depresses the fucking shit out of me, dude.
We'll get you another one.
It's got to happen. He said, whatever you need, I got you. Now he sounds like that boxing manager, the big hair.
It might be one of those flea market, like painted on types.
God, I have totally done that for band shirts, man. Made a
I know. I remember back. Yeah.
I've done it. People bought it. Like we're a starving artist. We all live with our parents.
That'd be the most valuable shirt out there now. It's the custom made.
Right.
What if you had a Metallica one made by Metallica at the flea market? I mean, that would be worth millions.
Oh shit! Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah! If I would have only become Metallica, that spray painted T-shirt, all like 500 of them that I made, be a gold mine right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are going to conclude this interview. We've gone long enough, and quite frankly, I have to pee. So we're going to close this off. I made myself laugh there. He's going to pee with me?
No, I'm not going in the same boat. Let's say that.
Oh my God! All right, let's close this before I have a fucking. I can't even catch my fucking breath, damn it. For anybody that's still watching 2 hours later, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jamie King. And you know what? We're definitely going to keep that train rolling. Y'all, I love you to death for the time you spend, because that's something you can never get back. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. So as always, until next time, stay true, stay you. There we go. That's it.
Awesome.
All right.
Appreciate it. You're a master, man.